Oh, hello. Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to look at the FAQs for April 2022, which dropped today, Friday, the 29th of April, over on the Games Workshop website. They didn't make a front page post about it on Warcom, so you have to go to Warcom, go to the downloads and FAQs, Kill Team, and you'll see all the FAQs that have been updated today, the 29th of April. Well, it might be the 30th by the time this gets uploaded, but the 29th of April is what you're looking for. Let's get into it and see what's changed. So we're going to start with the core rules. The first thing I want to point out, I hope that Glass Half Dead doesn't feel that I'm getting at him, because he got really confused about this in his video. The new rules have a little star at the start of them. That's how you know which bits are new in each update, and then the blue text is used when they've copied and pasted a chunk of text. The blue is to show you what they've actually changed within that chunk. But what I initially thought, what Glass thought in his video, was that the blue indicated what was actually new for that edition of the FAQ, and it's not. So what I'm saying is, when the FAQ gets updated and this rule stays in, this this change to the blast rule on page 142, the asterisk will go away, but the blue text will remain. So the asterisk is, as you're going through the documents, if you've got the main documents, I've cut all of the relevant parts out for you here. Hopefully I haven't missed any anyway. But as you're going through the document, the asterisk is what indicates the new additions to all those documents. Except, just to be really clear, when the document is the first edition, so when it says 1.0 as its version number, then obviously there are no asterisks, because that's the first edition of that document. When it's a number higher than 1.0, there will be asterisks to indicate what's been added in the latest version. It does explain this in the document, but it's a bit oblique. Okay, so the core rules is everything that's changed or been added in the core rules. So let's have a little look. So first of all, there's been a change to the blast rule on page 142. It says to insert the following. First of all, each time a friendly operative performs a shoot action and selects this weapon, or in the case of profiles, this weapon's profile, after making the shooting attack against the target, make a shooting attack with this weapon using the same profile against each other operative visible to and within X of the original target. So let's take that first of all. They've inserted visible to, and this is not a material change to the rules, insofar as if you look in your core rulebook, there's a diagram that shows that you have to be visible to and within X. They've just added the words visible to as to the text to make sure that the text and the diagram agree with each other, but to keep the rules kind of concise and tight and legally correct. But this was always the rule, and as far as I'm aware, most people have always played it this way. Then they've inserted this new clause. Within X original target hyphen, each of them is a valid target and cannot be in cover. I think that might be new, the idea that you can never claim cover from a blast. So you can't be in cover, so you can't retain a dice, is what that means. Obviously we know that cover is a difficult thing, because sometimes we're thinking about cover alongside concealment, and sometimes we're thinking about cover in terms of retaining a dice, but the status of being in cover means you're retaining that dice. So that is what I think is the material change. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, that you can't retain a dice when you're behind cover if there's a wall between you, like a low wall, like a barricade, so you're visible but you're behind a barricade, so there's a barricade between you and the person that the grenade, say, was thrown at. Hang on, let me just... This is what I believe, and I could be totally wrong. So if you have a model here, okay, and then in red here, and then we're going to have a barricade in orange. Okay, here's our nice little barricade. There we go. What am I even drawing? And then we're going to have another figure in green here. Okay, that's good. What we're saying is, I believe that if we are going to fire a grenade, I mean, this is the quality content that you've come to the channel to see me try and draw a sort of MS Paint grenade. But if we fire a grenade, here's our massive grenade, and we aiming it at red. Once we've resolved the damage on red, it's then got the blast weapon. We're assuming this distance is circle. It's eligible to attack green because he's visible, because this is the standard low placed barricade, so they're visible head to head. Okay, so it satisfies this clause, and that hasn't changed. That was always the case. You needed to be visible. And what I think we're now saying is, previous to the FAQ, green would have been eligible to retain one of his 3 defense dice as a cover save by virtue of being in cover. Now you can't. You can never be in cover. I think that's what that FAQ amounts to. Please, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? Okay. Everything else, so that was the only material change in the core rules that I could find in the actual errata. Everything else is from the designer's commentary. Question. As an operative can perform a dash action during a climb or drop to reach its intended destination, it can also perform other actions that provide a free dash action to do the same, e.g. Dakka Dash, Commando, Dakka Boy. No, it must be the dash action. I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes when you read an FAQ and you think, what kind of lizard person was really trying, like really rules lawyering and trying, technically, can I Dakka Dash up the ladder and then get a free shot while you can't Dakka Dash, you can't Flamer Dash that Novitiates have. You have to use the dash to, if you need to use a dash to extend your climb, it has to be the dash action, not dash then get to the top then shoot, because you can shoot and dash. Okay. Are drop zones considered to be unlimited height, for example? If a rule specifies within hex of your opponent's drop zone and you're measuring from a vantage point, do you measure for horizontal distance only? Yes. That's a material change, to my understanding of the rules anyway. So your drop zone is a 3D shape that extends all the way up to the ceiling of the room that you're playing the game in, right? It extends on an unlimited height, so you don't have to measure you don't have to measure the diagonal when you're checking distance to your opponent's drop zone. But it does take the point, this is really a 2-for-1. It tells us that this does not apply to the center of the kill zone. For central control, it's referring to the particular tiny point on the center of the board, on the center of the kill zone floor, where those crinkles in the folding mat come together. Okay? Right, this one, people with big brains think this is a big thing and deserves a lot of explanation. I am perhaps not good enough at the game to really understand what's changed. Or I was always playing it correctly and happy days. Does a cover line have unlimited height and below the line drawn between 2 bases? In other words, if a cover line is drawn above or below a terrain feature, does it cross the terrain feature? No. So we're playing in 3 dimensions. So what this means is you can't, a lot of people use that, including me. I've even done a video where I said that they were a recommended thing. A lot of people use the laser lines from Army Painter that project the straight laser line, and so that won't lead you to believe, oh, it's touching because the laser is a 2-dimensional line. The laser is touching the terrain feature because it's got to project down onto the mat from above. You can't kind of project a sideways laser unless I guess you kind of got really creative with it, held a piece of paper behind the thing and then turned it sideways and tried to, but you have to use your brain. You have to imagine the diagonal line, you have to get down there. You could use a traditional laser dot, I guess, a red dot to kind of check it if you couldn't agree with your opponent, but it's not going to be obscured just because there's a low terrain feature in the way. It doesn't cross that terrain feature. That was always intuitive to me, but I think some people somewhere are blown up by it. So if I was to guess, it's one of those things where the opposing ruling probably makes a lot of sense on Tabletop Simulator, where you've got a kind of very never played Tabletop Simulator, so I could be talking out of my absolute backside, but that is my guess, is where that confusion's arisen, is from there. Although that has this idea that cover lines don't have unlimited height here, I guess has led to this question, which I find frankly hilarious. So some terrain features, such as pipes, would realistically provide cover for an operative, yes, but as they are slightly elevated off the ground, cover lines drawn to the operative would not cross the terrain feature. In such circumstances, should they still provide cover? So what they're saying here is, given Games Workshop that in the previous question you've told us that a cover line does not have unlimited height, it's a flat line that you trace, okay? If I am on the floor and there's the I think it's the original Sector Mechanicus pipes that tend to come out and arch across, so they'll have supports, but then the round pipe will actually resting on the floor. You could technically sneak the line, if you picture it as like a flat line, you could sneak it under the pipe and you could get either side of the model's base, which rules as written. Alright, if you're the full-on rules as written, rules lawyer, intentions and narrative get out, I've got my full rules lawyer wig, the robes, you know, the whole rules lawyer setup, then I guess you're going to be like, oh, well, the cover line can unobstructedly go to either side of that model's base because there's like a gap under the pipe. The answer is, if terrain features like this should realistically provide cover, treat small gaps between the bottom of a terrain feature and the kill zone floor as part of the terrain feature. Be sure to discuss this with your opponent in the determined kill zone step and use common sense to resolve it, which I absolutely love. You can almost hear the golf clap of the person at Games Workshop that's got this FAQ sent into them and has gone, my word, use your brain. Yes, the sector Minotaur and pipes are designed to be like cover. They're designed to give you cover. That's why we define them that way in the rulebook. Please just play the game as it's obviously intended to be played, and please, you know, I mean, fair play to them. If people are going to play as they do over in the States and in other places, and they play with real prize, like big, not like a trophy or a certificate or bragging rights, but like prizes with some real value on the line, then you are going to get people that are going to try and be, oh, technically, you know, this. So it's good that they're not ignoring it. It's good that they've answered the question to satisfy those people. It's just that it's not my scene. I find it kind of funny. I find a lot of the FAQs in this FAQ packet quite funny. I think the blast one, like I said, is a material change. I think the others are just to stop people being quite funny. Compendium Tau. So in the whole Compendium FAQ, these were the only two new things. They've done some cleaning up around saviour protocols not working if you walk away from the range. So if you turn on saviour protocols and then you move in the Tau's turn, like away, or you move out either of the pieces more than a circle away, then they no longer kind of retain the saviour protocols, is what's happening there. So that's, yeah. And then the question here, when a drone operative is protecting a friendly operative as a result of saviour protocols, and the protected operative is targeted by a weapon that makes subsequent attacks within a given distance, blast and torrent, do you determine the distance from the protected operative or the drone operative? The protected operative. So you can't kind of use that extra couple of inches to say that you're out of the range of the blast or the torrent if your actual Tau is within range. That's what's being counted as. Again, these feel like logical changes that people were previously insisting on raw rulings, and there was no misapprehension about what the designers intended. There was just kind of a dogged adherence to whatever was going to be advantageous for that player at that time. So again, I don't know it needed to be done, but obviously for those people that play that way, it's good that Games Workshop have done it, right? There's no such thing as a pointless FAQ, I guess. Even if I think it's quite funny that people were kind of arguing that, obviously for some people it was spoiling their fun, and I value those people and their fun. It's just as valid as mine, their way of playing, their friendship groups. So I'm glad we've got the clarifications for the people that needed them. Pathfinders. So I just want to say it's the same clarifications as Compendium Tau in terms of the drone operative one here. It's the same question and this bit here about Saviour Protocols up here. Those are exactly the same as were in the Compendium FAQ. I guess I think Games Workshop's kind of done with the Compendium. I guess they knew they were updating it for Pathfinders. I don't think they're still really playtesting or caring much about the Compendium teams. They knew they'd updated it for Pathfinders, so I guess they just put it in for the Compendium. What's weird is that there's an extra rule here for the Pathfinders drones. Friendly Pathfinder operatives cannot be protected by Saviour Protocols from shooting attacks made against each operative within range of a specified point, e.g. a remote mine. This also means they can't be protected from the subsequent shooting attacks made by the results of a blast or torrent. So in other words, your Saviour Protocols can protect you from the initial targeted attack with a grenade or a flamer, but not the attacks that are made subsequently to everybody within circle. Now, first of all, I've got no problem with that being the rule. I just think it's kind of strange. Does that mean that the Compendium Tau Saviour Protocols, where they haven't added that sentence in the FAQ, does that mean that the Compendium Tau Saviour Protocols will save you against blast and torrent? I don't know. I don't think it's a burning question because I don't think anybody's playing Compendium Tau, but it just is interesting to me that these top two were mirrored over in the Compendium FAQ, and this one is exclusive to the Pathfinders, which I guess makes their drones slightly worse, technically. The other little change, which is funny, is this one. So the gun drone has a melee weapon, which is its ram, where it literally headbutts the thing with its kind of body. It was 3-4 in the book. It's been nerfed down to 2-3. In line with all the other drone rams. It was just a typo. Games Workshop needs to stop making so many obvious little typographical errors in terms of stat blocks, because this is not what I would characterise as a nerf. This is what I would characterise as a typographical error. All the other drones have the 2-3 to begin with, and there's nothing on the gun drone, like it hasn't got like a armoured little plate on the front of it to make it look like it'd be better at banging into stuff. So yeah, typing error. Okay, moving on, we got loads to do. Novitiates, so I'm going to talk a little bit longer about Novitiates because obviously Novitiates are my jam. So I kind of have a little bit more nuance here. So let's talk about Defenders of the Faith, and I've got a funny story about this as well. So Defenders of the Faith, for those of you that aren't aware, is the stratagem, really powerful stratagem for Novitiates. There's 2 command points, and it says in the book, if you're within white at the centre of one model, within white at the centre of each objective, can perform a free fight action and a free shoot action, is what it says in the book. And now it says they can do one of the following and they don't have to do the same. So what that means is that if you have, because you've got more than one objective usually, say you've got 2 characters that are both eligible, so they're both within white of the centre of different objectives, so it's 1 model per objective, you can make that out of activation shoot or fight attack, but you now can't do both. It's funny, on one of my earlier videos yesterday, I had a comment from Kill Team Hungry in the morning today where he was explaining to me, you can use that if you charge someone and don't fight them, and then in the next turn you can use Defenders of the Faith to fight, and then if you kill them in the fight phase, you're then free to shoot, and then you can activate, and then you can shoot again. And me and Zimbad were talking about that at work, like, oh, that's really strong, do you think that's intended? Like, you know, backwards and forwards whenever we passed each other. And then later the same day, they come out with the FAQ and say, no, you cannot fight and shoot. You can fight or shoot, but you don't. All the eligible models don't have to do the same thing. So someone on one objective can fight, someone on another objective can shoot, but you cannot fight and then shoot. Okay. Page 42, the Burning Wrath tactical ploy, changing Inferno 2 from a special rule to a critical hit rule. This makes no material change. It was always a critical rule. If you read the actual text for the rule Inferno on the black page where it tells you about Inferno, it says in the text Inferno is a critical hit rule. It's just making sure that it is placed in the correct section in all the places where it's referenced, in all the stat blocks where it's referenced. Okay. Page 43, the Novitiate Penitent's Absolution through Destruction unique action. So change this to say, perform a free fight action with its operative after completing the action's fight sequence. If its operative is still within engagement range of an enemy operative, you can immediately fight in combat with this operative again for the second round of combat. You do not have to select the same target, and the Zealous Rage ability has no effect. This is clarifying how I always believed it was played. So Novitiate Penitents have an ability called Absolution through Destruction, which you always do instead of performing a fight action, because it gives you 2 fight actions. Okay, and then you have a separate rule, Zealous Rage. It says on it you get to re-roll all your misses in the first fight action of that turn. So yeah, you do a fight action, and then you can do a totally separate second fight action. You don't get your re-rolls, but you don't have to pick the same target, which is exactly what the rule always said. This has just spelt it out in detail. I guess some other people had questions about exactly how that worked. Then we're over to the FAQ type questions, and there are 3 new FAQ type questions here. For the purposes of generating faith points, when does an operative have a specialism? So this refers to the rules, which are in the faith point section. It tells you gain 3 faith points every turn, and then it all has a big list of if an operative with this specialism does a thing, it generates a faith point, and if this one does a thing, it generates faith points. And on the very first read through that I watched, which again, it was 2 mentions today. Glass did a read through and said these are narrative rules, ignore them, and basically everyone in the community went, yeah, these are narrative rules, ignore them. It doesn't actually say anywhere, like in a big obvious thing, these are narrative rules, okay, or in narrative play, but you had to kind of read it and go, oh well, things don't have a specialism when you buy them. You can only gain a specialism in narrative play, so this must therefore be a narrative play rule. And then what happened, apparently, I mean, I was at the event, I didn't see it happen. There was another Novitiates player at the event, it wasn't me. A second Novitiates player at the event obtained a ruling at the Kill Team tournament, from the staff there, where they said, oh no, the staff told me that if I have the specialism symbol on the card, so in other words, if I'm eligible for the specialism, then the rule is supposed to be that I get the faith points for doing the actions as outlined in the rules. And then Can You Roll a Crit reported that on his channel, and then he conflated it and sort of said, oh, that they'd asked the games developer. I don't think that might have been a bit of Chinese whispers, but he definitely in his video that it had somehow, he definitely invoked the idea that the games developers were involved in that answer. So it turns out that that was all balderdash. Sorry, Crit, but it turns out that was all balderdash, and we've been playing correctly. I feel sorry, somewhere in my comments section there was a guy playing, I play in a club in Paris and we've always played it that way too. I think that that ruling is correct. Well, now here you have it. It's not correct. You get 3 faith points a turn, plus the extra 3 if you have your Pronatus doing her thing with her relic seeking her cup, and that's your lot. You can get more from the usual sources from blowing yourself up and things like that, but you cannot get them from these specialisms in a matched play event. You cannot. Okay, which is it's how most people I know personally were playing it. We had all this stuff that's muddied the water, and I'm really glad it's been clarified. Really positive FAQ. Thank you, Games Workshop. Question: if an enemy operative makes a shooting attack with an indirect weapon and I use Blinding Aura Act of Faith, which takes precedence? Indirect. So indirect, I think already basically ignores the fact that you are in cover, and then Blinding Aura puts you in cover, and they're saying that indirect gets to ignore that. And then the same question with Barrage, and against Barrage, Blinding Aura gets to ignore that. I am not quite sure why Games Workshop went one way with indirect and one way with Barrage. Off the top of my head, I'm struggling to remember. Barrage weapons are the ones, I can't name a barrage weapon. It's the guard off board artillery barrage weapons. Barrage weapons are the ones where if you're in a building and you've got like a roof over you, they can't shoot you. whereas indirect weapons can always basically get you. So barrage was always a slightly weaker rule than indirect, and this is just another example of how barrage is weaker. I think that's a nerf, because I think when I've played this before, I've assumed that you could blinding aura, or in my head, I've assumed you could blinding aura your way out of indirects as well. So the FAQ is probably quite useful. I say I've played it that way. I think I've thought it in my head. I don't know whether it's ever come up to actually do it that way. And it's interesting that if someone's just throwing a crack grenade at you from right in front of you, it's immune to blinding aura. I don't know if that would be intuitive, so it's good to have the FAQ. Okay. Warpcoven. So Warpcoven got one errata, that's here, and all they've done is really subtle. They've inserted a comma, which changes the meaning of the sentence, because English is syntaxually interesting like that. So it used to say, each time this operative would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound or a shooting attack from a psychic power, roll 1d6. And now it says, each time the operative would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound or a shooting attack from a psychic power, roll 1d6. Okay, so what it's changed from is initially the syntax would suggest it was saying if you take a mortal wound or a shooting attack from psychic power, you can roll 1d6 and get your 5 up. It was not lost. So in other words, it was only protecting from psychic power wounds, whether they were mortal wounds or shooting attack wounds. Whereas now it is changing to protect you from all mortal wounds in general, regardless of source, and in addition, shooting attacks from a psychic power. This is one of those FAQs that I think is really good. They've clarified what they meant, and I don't think what they meant was actually that obvious before, because an occult talisman could easily be designed to protect you just from psychic stuff, and there's plenty of rubbish bobbins kind of items that you'd never buy anyway, so it's good that it's got that comma now. If that's what Games Workshop intended, then that's what we've got, and that's good. It makes it a bit better. It's a buff. Question. When using the Schemes of Change tactical ploy, what happens if the required reveal time of the new tactical op has passed and it's no longer possible to reveal it? So the Schemes of Change tactical ploy lets you discard a tactical objective and randomly draw a new one from the deck that you selected at the start of the game. It's made it marginally more useful. I'm gonna just check around with a Roboros on the Discord who actually plays Warpcoven. Off the top of my head, I don't think you'd ever use the Schemes of Change tactical ploy. Like, there's probably an edge case where you're like, oh yeah, I've got this thing and I've kind of screwed myself and I can't score my thing, so I guess I'll try. But it's not something you're going to use in more than one game in 10 anyway. So it's nice that it's slightly clarified that if you now draw something that you had to reveal at the start of the game and you're at the sort of bottom of turning point 3, that you can just draw a different thing. That's good. Question from the Warp Portal Psychic Power. Can I select the operative performing the action to Warp Portal itself? Yes. Before it's removed, mark its original location or intended destination so you can accurately set it back up again within red of its original location. So you can use the Warp Portal Psychic Power to gain a cheeky extra move of red with the model that's casting it, if that's what you would like to do. I don't know if that's intuitive, but I don't know if somebody said, I want to do this, blah, 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 and I wouldn't be like, oh no, you can't do that. So it's good to have it out there. It wouldn't have occurred to me. If a sorcerer operative has already performed a dash action during its activation, can I still use the Capricious Plan tactical ploy to change its order? So the Capricious Plan tactical ploy lets you do a dash and change your order. Someone's saying here, like, if they've misplayed, right, and they've spent one of their action points on their dash, and then they've realised, oh dear, I want to change my order, they can still reach in and do the Capricious Plan. The fact that they've misplayed and paid for the dash before using Capricious Plan hasn't locked them out of using Capricious Plan at all to change the order, which is fine. If I was playing in a relatively friendly situation, I'd obviously let my opponent have the AP back for the dash action, but in a tournament setting, it's good to know what the harder, the narrow, technically correct rule is, I suppose. Right. Vet Guard got some changes, mostly around the Confidant. Not the confident veteran, as people say, but the Confidant. It's French. So the Confidant, essentially, he has an ability which lets you activate another model in the same turn as so you activate the Confidant and then you activate another fellow. What it's basically saying is that you can't use that to double activate the Confidant. That's not how that works. And then if we just pop over to the FAQ question, you also can't use it to activate the Confidant and then activate the tactical assets. So the tactical assets are the off-board artillery things that you can have in Vet Guard instead of taking the 4 extra troopers. Everybody kind of goes, oh, the meta is to take the 4 extra troopers anyway, so you don't see them very often, but just in case, you can't do it that way. And then this is what I'm in awe. This is an FAQ. So page 48, Demolition Veterans Detonate ability. They felt the need to clarify that exploding your big thing of dynamite would also hurt your friendlies, essentially. Friendly and each operative, friendly and enemy within blue is a valid target. Like, the marketing video for Kill Team even shows the demolitions guy blowing himself up with his demo charge and all his guys. Like, it's so painfully obvious that it's meant to have friendly fire turned on. I want to know who these people are who are trying to argue, oh, no, it doesn't do friendly fire. That's not how it works. Certainly, when I've played again, like, very memorably, you know, and I thoroughly lost this game. I played against one of the London Kill Team scene guys. I forget the fellow's name. I have spoken to him online briefly since. And we played the last round in the team tournament. And one of the things he did was he exploded his demo guy like right in the middle of the board. He killed like 3 of my guys and 2 of his, something like that. And he obviously knew the rule. I assume that was how the rule works. Someone out there is trying to argue the toss, and Games Workshop felt the need to clarify it. So, okay, good. They've clarified it. But it doesn't change anything to me. I don't think. Right, moving on. Corsair Voidscarred. So these are brand new. So there's no stars anymore, like I said, because everything in their thing was new. It was very short. So I'm going to start sounding a bit salty now. I'm really sorry. Can the Voidscarred Shade Runner operative move within engagement range of an enemy operative for the slicing attack action, even though it has the fly keyword, and can move around across and over operatives as if they were not there? Yes. Move it to a location it can be placed in within engagement range, ignore fly, resolve the slicing attack, and continue to the move with fly. In other words, Games Workshop are saying, just do the thing that you know and I know that we wanted you to be able to do. Okay? It technically doesn't work. It does now. Are you happy? Okay, we've solved your particular little problem. Look, I don't mean to be so kind of snarky about it. I know there are people who really have to be like, they want the rules to be like, you know, just like crisp and precise and exactly thus. But if you're on my channel, maybe it's a British trait. I'm very verbose and very kind of laid back, and I'm quite happy that the rule was meant to do a thing. Obviously, it does the thing. If I get a grip on myself and my salt about people being strange, then I guess I can understand. Again, like I tried to say before, it's a good thing. It is a good thing that Games Workshop have FAQ'd something, even though I think it was obvious. There were people out there who couldn't understand that it was obvious, and now it's been FAQ'd for them. Or indeed, they're playing in a cash tournament where everyone knows what the rules as intended are, but because there's a big prize, either in terms of models or in terms of money or vouchers or whatever it is, people are going to legalistically argue the most favourable interpretation of the rules. So I'm glad that it's been shut down. It's a good thing. It's good that Games Workshop didn't just ignore it, but it does just make me go kind of, really? Question: when a Voidscarred Wayseeker operative performs the Manifest Psychic Power action for a second time during its activation, do I have to select a different Psychic Power from the one I selected the first time that activation? Yeah, I assume that was the case. It's now the rules. I'm guessing that they omitted to say you can't double on Psychic Powers, although I'm sure at least one of the Psychic Powers is a shooting attack, and you can only ever do one shooting attack in a turn anyway. Or is the Wayseeker the what? No, hang on. That's what Zimbad said to me, but no, the Wayseeker is the one, isn't it? Where the psychic powers are basically medic and comms. And so what they're saying is you can't medic and you can't comms. That FAQ did need to be there. If they've omitted that sentence, I can totally see how people would say, oh, I can medic twice. Yeah. So you can medic and comms, but you can't medic. Unless I got the wrong end of the wrong stick and I'm thinking of the wrong model. I don't have, it's in the other room, I don't have the Nachman book with me. And I've got a whole video coming about Voidscarred. I think Games Workshop have done a strange thing with Voidscarred. I think no one's talking about them, no one plays them, and that's because Harlequins came out. Like, I've got no problem with the Voidscarred list, and I've got no problem with the Harlequins list, but I think it was bad for the game that they came out within a week of each other. But that is a separate video that I'll get into in another time. But there's no buzz about Corsairs, no one's playing them. Legionaries. Change the final paragraph to read, other than Legionary warrior operatives, your kill team can only include each operative above once. Yeah, did you forget the word Legionary? Good, you've put it back in. Fine, I'm sure there were some people that were upset by that. I don't understand them. They probably wear shoes on their heads. Page, that's unkind. I'm sorry, I'm tired. It's been a long day. Okay, long weekend coming. We'll get there. Let's breathe. So, page 39, Perpetual Aggression Strategic Ploy. It can do so even if it's performed a normal move or charge action during the activation and vice versa. Doing so doesn't prevent it from subsequently performing a normal move or charge action during the activation in the normal manner. Yes, the rule does what you would think it would do. Again, trying not to be so angry about this. It just seems to be them saying, yes, the rule does what you would think it would do. That intuitive kind of thing where you look at it and go, this is what this is supposed to do, right? It does that. It doesn't do the kind of technical interpretation. I'm going to repeat myself again if I carry on, so I'm not, but yes, good. Page 40, mutability and change. So this is interesting. This is basically saying the mutability and change tactical ploys where you spend a command point to get a action point, and it's just clarifying that you use it when the operative is activated, and therefore because you get it when you're activating, you actually get the APL and you can use it, rather than just the kind of thing where you have an APL and then it's only really useful for holding objectives. It's actually an APL that you can use. Let me just skip down one because there's a linked one down here. We're going to talk about this one first. Page 46, Legionary Aspiring Champion in the Eyes of the Gods. Change the ability to read once per turning point during this operative's activation. If it incapacitates enemy operative, it can perform a free action during the activation. It's the same sort of thing. It's them saying, yes, it does what it looks like it was supposed to do and not what it actually did. Because what it actually did was give you an APL in the middle of your turn, which you then couldn't use and would lose. And its only use was to make you count for more when you were holding objectives. Now, the APL is actually, it's not an APL, it's a free action. So it doesn't count for more. It's done the opposite. It no longer helps you count for more when you're doing holding an objective, but it does let you do an extra action, which is what it was always intended to do, which is good. It was just a shame that they FAQ'd this last FAQ in the general rules to say when you get an APL, if you don't get it at the start of the turn, you can't use it. So good. I'm glad that that's clarified, and maybe it will make it a bit more interesting to select which leader you want to use in the Legionaries kill team. Makes the Aspiring Champion a bit more of an interesting pick over the other one there, the Chosen. Okay, right. The Chosen Soul Feast. Change the ability to read each time it fights in combat. At the end of the resolved hit step of the combat, if the operative has not been incapacitated and any of their strikes inflicted critical damage, it regains 2 lost wounds. So a slight nerf. Obviously, I feel bad calling it a nerf. It's a clarification of what they intended, not where I got from first reading. But basically, if you die, you can't regain these 2 lost wounds to prevent yourself from being dead. Okay, so you can use it to top your wounds up, but if you've been killed, you can't get your 2 wounds back to resurrect, basically, which is fine. Yeah, good. Void Dancer Troupe. There are going to be people who are upset that there's not like a raft full of nerfs here. I want to talk about that at the end, so I will. The only actual errata was that the Shadow series are Psyker, so good to know. It was obvious, but good to know. Right, clarifications. For the Sadath ability, if damage inflicted from an attack dice is ignored, e.g. just a Scratch Ploy Commando, does the dice count as inflicting damage for the performances of the epic or melodrama allegory? No, which is what I would have thought. Similar to the above question, does it count as inflicting damage if all the lost wounds are subsequently ignored, e.g. disgustingly resilient Death Guard? In this case, yes. It's inflicted the damage and ignored the wounds, but it's still technically inflicted the damage. Really glad that clarification is in there, because that's one that would sit. I would have interpreted that in a contrary way to the way it was meant to be interpreted. So thank you, Games Workshop, for setting that one up for me. Good. Question: can I use Sigarak? Used to know this. Can I use Sigarak's Jest strategic ploy against an enemy operative strike that was done as if it were in combat or similar, e.g. Unending Bloodshed's tactical ploy for the Legionaries? No, in such cases you are not in combat yourself. That seems reasonable. It's not something I've put a lot of thought into, how obvious or unobvious that is, but that seems reasonable. Oh, this is another one where I despair at my fellow gamers. When using the Between Colours strategic ploy, does the operative have to be in a location it can be placed to perform the shoot action? Yes. Because otherwise, you could fly up in the air to a point where you could see absolutely every, and then you could fly down again. No, you have to be somewhere where you can be placed, even though, just for anyone that doesn't know, Between Colours lets you interrupt your movement, right? So you can move a little bit, shoot, and then move a little bit more. It's a really good ploy, but you do actually need to stop physically and place the model, do the shoot, and then carry on moving, which, obvious to me, but maybe not to others. Okay, good. Wyrmblade. I think this is a real material change, and there's not been many in here, but this is a real material change. So question: when using the hiding tactical ploy, if I activate a hiding operative, so Wyrmblade had the ability to keep some models off the board and bring them on after the fact. We'll set it up with an order, so you have a rule that says if I set it up with an order, just like at the start of the game, and then you subtract action points for the normal move, so you have to basically spend an action point the turn that you come onto the board. It uses up your normal move. The question is then, can you ability change the order with the Cult Ambush ability, in particular changing Engage to benefit the attack dice rolls of the Cult Ambush? No. So there's a lot going on here if you're not familiar with Wyrmblade. Essentially, it's the interplay of 2 ploys and a special rule. Wyrmblade get buffs when they've changed their order that turn. Right, first thing to understand. Hiding tactical ploy lets you put your model on like a sort of a deep strike situation, and you choose the order it has when it comes on. As part of the cost to play hiding, you burn your normal move. The Cult Ambush ability lets you change your order, but you have to do it at the start of your activation. So you aren't at the start of your activation because you've burnt your normal move. So basically you cannot combine hiding tactical ploy with the Cult Ambush ability. It can't be done. Fine. I know a lot of people were playing that the other way. From the rules, it was perfectly legitimate to think it could work that way, but it can't, so that's fine. Locusts, I'm sad about this one. If a locust performs the Quicksilver Strike action, then an enemy operative moves with fly within blue of it, can that enemy operative's activation be interrupted to resolve the Quicksilver Strike action? Not while the enemy operative is using fly. It moves around the locust operative as if it were not there, so the condition of Quicksilver Strike can't be met. This is kind of sad. I don't think Harlequins would have suffered much if they had to fear Genestealer Cult Locusts interrupting them and getting their kind of attack opportunity. It's just another little way in which Harlequins are a little bit better than other things, that they don't have to worry about this, and it just makes the Wyrmblade Harlequin matchup a little bit like, oh, that's a shame you've ignored one of my coolest, most interesting rules. Well, that's the way Games Workshop want to go. We're nearly done. I just want to say, and I say it in the middle of the video annoyingly, if you're enjoying the content and you've got this far, you're probably enjoying it, consider subscribing. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm going to try saying it here, because I guess a lot of people kind of turn off towards the end of videos once the final card comes up, just out of habit. So please, if you are listening and you're enjoying my content, consider subscribing. Thank you so much. Right, let's get on with it. So we're on to the final thoughts. A load of things to say here. Games Workshop actually stuck to errata and clarifications. There aren't really any balance changes. There might be some changes which affect balance in your meta if you were playing the rules wrong hitherto. But Games Workshop have, to my way of thinking, actually stuck to just clarifying and changing things that were poorly explained or misprinted. They haven't always done this. They haven't even always done this in the lifetime of Kill Team. I do not believe that the Custodes having 4 APL was a misprint that was corrected to 3. That was a balance change. But since they've announced they're doing the balanced data slate, and we've seen the first balanced data slate, they are very helpfully dividing the two things. Which means FAQs and erratas, even though I've managed to make a sort of half-hour, 40-minute video out of it, are more boring than balanced data slates would be, because there aren't any. They're not seeking to change the game. Okay. Now, if I've missed anything, if I've badly explained anything, if I don't understand something, please come into the comments and let me know what I've come along and done. I think this is generally a fairly gentle FAQ. I do not think this is going to shake up the meta. I do not think this is going to change anything fundamentally. I do not think of tier lists are null and void. I don't think there's anything here really that you need to worry too much about. I do wish Games Workshop would drop articles when they do an FAQ. I really worry how many people are not going to know that the FAQ exists. Part of the reason I'm doing the video, I really want people to know that there is an FAQ and they should be using it. And Games Workshop don't seem to be keen to tell them that. Okay, good. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Like I already said, please subscribe. Helps the channel a lot. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. If you like the video, like it. If you would like to speak to me, leave a comment. If you're going to go and buy stuff, there's some links in the description that also help me out. One in the UK, one in the US. Thank you so much. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. And cheerio, everybody.